Welcome back to another episode of Inspired Content for this month of National Novel Writing Month. Today we're doing another episode about gaming, specifically gaming that helps generate story ideas. This time we're looking at Storytime Dice. It looks like it's targeted towards a younger audience, but I'm going to go ahead and admit that one of the big contributing factors for me on this one is their polyhedral dice. You may recognize some of these shapes if you've ever done any board game, role-playing games, tabletop games. But, and 8-sided and 3 6-sided. I'll be doing a bit of a show of how those work and my thoughts on some of those, and I'll see you on the other side to discuss my input on that and ideas it inspires. Alright, see you on the other side. I gotta say, I love these things for what they are. I'm gonna rate this an 8.8 out of a 9.1. I think the biggest issue I have with them is the instructions, the information sheet that comes with them. They're a little more rigid in their interpretation of something. They have something like a police officer, but I mean, you could have, the police officer is Sheriff of Nottingham, I guess, is police officer. A wizard, is that Harry Potter, or are we talking Dresden Files? I mean, a clown could be court jester or the Joker from Batman. He's on a hero die, but that's the other part that gets me is, the heroes could be villains and the villains could be heroes. I would think there are plenty of stories you can tell with a bandit as a hero, or a pirate, or a mummy, or a ghost, or any of those types of things. And I think the biggest problem I had with that was I keep rolling helicopters, and the use of a helicopter in a story with a deep sea diver and an alien gets a little more clumsy there. And I have a little trouble with the obstacle die sometimes. But other than that, I do love these things greatly. It can be fun. If you roll a cowboy and you roll a ray gun, you've got Han Solo. You roll princess and you roll a rocket ship and you've got Princess Leia. You do cowboy and a rocket ship and you've got Firefly. I mean, it's there. The other thing that I have a problem with this is the how to play the game. I mean, it's really not a game, as near as I can tell. It's a means of brainstorming. It's a fun activity. It's kind of just fun to do with other people, but the rules they have for the games they have, I think, fall short of actual games and just our minimalist structure to how to roll up story ideas and then tell them. There's no play, there's no competition or cooperation necessarily in a lot of senses. You can do cooperative storytelling with some of the rules they use. Quite frankly, I'm at the point where, other than occasional hints of implications of what's on the tool die, or interpreting the situations they get into, those types of things, I don't have a lot of use for the instruction sheet. But this is where we get into the inspirations it provides, and these are some of the games I think you can have some fun playing with this. So to start with, something akin to a Texas Hold'em, where you take the 3 cubic dice and you roll those suckers up and you put them down, and now each player gets to roll. Player has to roll the other 4 dice, and once you've rolled the results on all of those dice, you try to build a story using as many of the dice as you can. You get points deducted for any dice you leave out. You can leave out as many as you want, but you lose more points if you do that. And so the person who uses the most dice and tells the best story, according to everybody at the table, wins that hand. Roll the character die and setting die and try to think of a story that matches those results. Then others have to guess what it is. And then you can use the rest of the dice to try to give hints. You tip them over and show something that tells another part of the story so that they understand a little bit more, but it costs them points to get those hints. And so, in both of these cases, you're looking at, an existing point value you start with, and the costing of points ends when everybody gets a turn, and whoever has the lowest point value loses, and whoever has the highest wins. Each player chooses 1 die at random, and they have to roll it and come up with a detailed profile for the character, the villain, the vehicle, the items, or the situation, the rewards, or the setting. They really detail it out. And then people can exchange with each other their detailed profile. And then you roll your die again, the same die you picked before, and add your new roll to the roll and detail profile you took from somebody else. And then they can now they can build a story from those 2 elements put together, and it's a judgment of who has the best story. Everybody around votes for the best story. And that's the end of that round. One player puts out their best idea of how an existing movie or book or game is possible to make with the dice. Their opponent then gets to re-roll 1 of those dice, 2 of those dice, or 3 of those dice, depending on which round you're in. So as it goes along, more of the story gets re-rolled, and the first player must retell the story in a new way with those new elements. If they're able to pull off a story, maybe have a third person as a judge, and who's the judge each turn changes. The judge assesses the story, and you try to get the best 2 out of 3 for each person. Roll the dice, and each person gets a die, or if you have to, more than 1 die per person, and you roll them out, and people slap on the die they want to keep, or has an element that they want in a story. So you slap down and re-roll any die that hasn't been slapped or locked in. And eventually all the dice will be locked in, and everybody has to use those dice in that order to tell a story. And again, voting on best story. I like the idea of being able to try to catch a die before anybody else has the chance to claim it, and then lock that in, because it gives you the opportunity to, if you're seeing where somebody else is going with a story and you see this one works for your story but breaks theirs, slap it. That way you can sabotage their story and keep yours going. An element of this would be, you may not have to use points, you may only have to use 4 or 5 of them. So it gives you the ability to say, well, I don't necessarily need this die, but I can make a story with all the others, but I can see where they're going with their story, and this will break their story because they need this one because they can't do it with the rest of them. It gives you some area to strategize with that. And then the last one for this is number 6. Number 6, a player rolls any 3 dice and uses the others to finish a story idea. Their opponent then gets to swap out 1 die for another. Wait. Number 6. Player rolls any 3 dice and uses the others by positioning them directly, not rolling them, to finish off a story, to make a complete story. Their opponent then gets the opportunity to pick any die and swap it. So you could take the storyteller's hero die and swap it for the villain die. And now, instead of having a story about a princess who needs to be rescued and kissed by their beloved prince, you instead have a vampire that needs to be rescued by a prince. And so you've now changed the story, and they have to find a way to take that element you've changed and make it work in a story. You might even exchange the item die for a hero die. So you'll have a story about a magic sword as the main character. Things like that. And so you're trying to swap dice. One swap. You can swap one for the other. But the other part of this is the storyteller has the option to buy a re-roll of any of the dice on the board at that point. So say somebody swapped the hero die and the item die. So you have a magic sword that's using a clown to do something in their quest. That's the story that's been jumbled up for you by your opponent. You have the option of re-rolling some of those dice. Re-rolling some of the dice you put down will cost you 1 point. Re-rolling any of the dice your opponent swapped on you cost you 3 points. And again, it's a point total at the end of the game that gets you a win or a lose after a series of rounds. But I think these are fun ways to use these dice, and they're possibilities of taking dice like these and expanding the ideas in bigger games. Any of these ideas could be branched out into an independent game by taking it just a little bit further. And so hopefully there's some inspiration in this for you. We'll be doing a few more videos like this before the end of the month. And see you next time.